Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'll call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. It is now 5:30 p.m. It only seems like 9 o'clock at night. All right. The city will hold a hybrid Committee of the Whole meeting. The public may participate in person at City Hall or utilizing video conference via WebEx events or the toll-free conference call number. Please go to cityofhomestead.com/calendar for specific details and instructions on participation utilizing video and telephonic conferencing. The meeting can also be viewed live on the City Access channel or city website at cityofhomestead.com. Public comments can be made in person at the meeting or emailed to publiccomments@cityofhomestead.com. Written public comments are limited to 300 words per comment. Written public comments on specific agenda items, including your name, address, item you would like to comment on, and your comment can be submitted by noon Monday, November 8th, 2021, and will be included in the minutes. Written public comments on general matters, including your name, address, and your comment, can be submitted up until 30 minutes after the end of the Committee of the Whole meeting and will be included in the minutes. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Fletcher. Councilwoman Bailey.
Here.
Councilwoman Faircloth Staggers. Councilman Roth. Councilwoman Avila.
Here.
Vice Mayor Guzman. Mayor Losner.
Here. Are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
No, Mr. Mayor, there are not.
Thank you. Tab 1, our first order of business is the approval of the October 12th, 2021 Committee of the Whole minutes. Do we have a motion for approval of those minutes?
Move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Vice Mayor Guzman. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, tab 2, motion to place car number 3403 on the council agenda, the grant application to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for $502,061 in CARES Act funding. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution adopting and authorizing the submission of the Florida Entitlement Community Development Block Grant Corona Relief Funding application for funding to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for $502,061. The application provides for small business grants, $161,897, housing assistance, rent and mortgage, $100,000, utilities assistance, $100,000, meals, grocery, gift cards, $90,000, transportation, elderly to vaccine sites, $10,000, and the administrative costs for this grant are $40,164. The city will also apply for unmet needs beyond the $502,061 in the event that additional funds become available under this program. These are additional CARES Act dollars from the state for entitlement communities. The suggested use of the funds was the subject of previous discussions at a pre-application public hearing March 19th, 2021, a second public hearing May 11th, 2021, and a third public hearing October 19th, 2021. Funds are expected to be available by the end of the year, and if at that time an alternative use is needed, it can be looked at to make an adjustment.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any initial questions or comments from council on this item? Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. For the manager, do we have a database of the elderly that don't have family that live with them? Or do we have any idea of how many elderlies live in our city?
Vice Mayor, we don't have a database, but my understanding is the county does, and we could certainly look at what they have and find out what we have here. I also think there may be some information we can get from SOS, who has some data on that.
Would it cost us to house a database? Would it be a lot of trouble for the city to have a database for elderly?
I don't think so. We can certainly look into it, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anything further?
Something else, Mayor. In the housing, rent, and mortgage, does that have a limit to a certain number of months that people may be behind to get assistance?
We have had previous programs for CDBG money. I don't have all of the details in front of me, but we would have a program that would explain what those limits are.
Thank you.
All right, I'll open the public hearing, and is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? Okay, last chance. I'll now close the public hearing and entertain a motion to place this item on the council agenda. Moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, tab 3, motion to place car number 3323 on the council agenda, transmission line number 3, relay replacement. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to award ITB number 202132 to PowerServe Technologies, Inc. in the amount of $33,157 for the replacement of relays to protect the electrical high-voltage line number 3 from the Lucy substation to the Redlands substation. The project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP number 0852. The purpose of this award is to replace 4 transmission relays that service the electrical high-voltage line that are over 20 years old and have reached end of life and are no longer supported by the original manufacturer. Relays are a critical component of the city's electrical system and are used to contain power outages to a small area, preventing them from becoming widespread.
Okay, thank you. Any initial questions or comments from council on this item? Okay, none appearing at this time. I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter. None appearing. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to place car number 3323 on the council agenda. Please come forward and give us your name and address for the record. Now, this is a public hearing on the specific item regarding a replacement of electrical transmission lines.
Okay, I'm trying to understand everything you're saying about what this for electric or something. Oh, I'm trying to understand what are y'all talking, can you explain it to me? Can you explain to me what y'all talking about? Because I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Okay.
UNC, right, C?
We are talking about on the agenda, it's tab 3, item C. And we're talking about expending city money to repair, replace transmission lines at one of our substations, electrical substations.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying, because I said, what is he talking about? I'm just trying to understand, that's all.
I'll try to speak slower and more clearly.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything further? Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take the opportunity to publicly thank Barbara and her team with our electrical department, because over the course of the last 3 weeks or so, we've been discussing several issues that have come up in my district, and they have immediately addressed those. And, these are really challenging jobs, and we are understaffed and sometimes underappreciated for all the hard work that our linesmen do. So thank you very much, and I will motion to approve this item. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve, a second by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is tab 4. And this is a motion to place car number 3392 on the council agenda, catalyst elements for engine 20. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to award ITB 202104 to Catalyst Combustion Corp. in the amount of $50,963.70 for exhaust catalyst elements for engine number 20 in the Gordon W. Ivy Power Plant, with the option to purchase additional elements as needed and in accordance with the tabulated unit prices through September 30th, 2022. This is a one-year agreement with the option to extend for one additional one-year period upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties. The purpose of this award is for a new set of exhaust catalyst elements for engine number 20, one of the largest generator engine sets at the Gordon W. Ivy Power Plant. During the reciprocating internal combustion engine national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants testing, it was determined that the old elements were not performing as required to remove the carbon monoxide from the exhaust gases. The EPA requires a minimum of 70% reduction of carbon monoxide gases, and fully functional exhaust catalyst elements are needed to achieve this standard.
Thank you. Any initial questions or comments from council? on this
Mr. Mayor.
item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Fletcher.
thank you. Ms. Manager, I'd asked a question during our discussion on Friday of last week, and I thought I remembered seeing an email about it, but I don't have it. In regards to the standards for the catalyst that we talked about, could you explain a little bit of that to me, please?
Yes, and I subsequently, Councilman spoke to Barbara about it, and I'll ask her to explain.
I'm sorry, Councilman Fletcher. Could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it very well.
Yeah, I'd asked that we're replacing the catalyst elements, and I was wondering what the standards for those elements were. Are they provided, by an engineering process? Because it seems like based on the conversation I had with the city manager and the other staff on Friday, our current catalysts aren't meeting the muster for reduction of those emissions. And I was just making sure that we're not paying good money after bad to buy another standard of catalyst, and then we have to do this again in 2 months' time.
Understood. I will have to research and see the standard that we provided when we went out for bid. Of course, we do provide technical specifications with the bid, and I can provide you with that.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. I just want to make sure that we're not cutting ourselves short in the long run, and we're not getting the ones that we actually need. So
Yes.
that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And I'd just also like to thank Councilwoman Avila for the kind comments.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. Anything further from council? Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter involving the purchase of catalyst elements for Engine 20? Not appearing, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion to place this on the council agenda.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Vice Mayor Guzman. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, tab 5. Is a motion to place car number 3394 on the council agenda. And this is a request for a waiver of usage fees. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Donum Christi Servidores del Servidor Comunidad Apostólica Hijos de Padre Pio, Inc. is hosting a toy giveaway. This event is free and open to the public. Their hope is to be able to deliver approximately 300 toys to children of low-income families in the city of Homestead. This is a nonprofit organization requesting the mayor and council authorize the city manager to approve a waiver of usage fees in the amount of $75 for the use of Pavilion 1 at the James Archer Park on December 19, 2021. According to the city's code, Chapter 20, Section 20-11, Fees and Charges, the city council sets fees and has the right to waive parks and recreation fees by a majority vote.
Hey, thank you. Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. Is the applicant here?
I believe they're joining us virtually.
I was just wondering if they would consider another park for their event December 19th, or if they are set on James Archer.
I can reach out to them if they're not on there, but I know that last year, while we were under the COVID emergency order, they did a food giveaway at James Archer. I think that they have a lot of members in the community that live nearby that park. I believe that's why their choice was.
I was just curious because the Southwest Advisory Committee and myself were doing something at either Blakey or Roby George, so I thought if they wanted to maybe join forces, we could do something together.
We can check with them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this request? All right, so they're not here. Okay, we'll close the public hearing then and ask for a motion to place this request on the council agenda to approve the request. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, Seconded by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, tab 6, motion to place car number 3336 on the council agenda. Engineering support for interconnection at Renaissance Substation.
At the February 9th, 2021 council meeting, council authorized staff to work with Florida Power and Light for the design and construction of a new interconnection point to be located at the Renaissance Substation located in the Park of Commerce. The city has executed a letter of intent with FPL for the new interconnection and plans to bring the new interchange service agreement to council in early 2022. As part of this project, the city will be engaging the services of the Florida Municipal Power Agency for engineering services, project oversight, and integration. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Florida Municipal Power Agency for engineering services for the Florida Power and Light interconnection project at the Renaissance Substation for a total of $34,300. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP number 2295. This item falls under professional services and is exempt from competitive bidding.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? This item? All right, is there anyone either online or present wishing to speak on this matter? I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to place this item on the council agenda for engineering support. Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Vice Mayor Guzman. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is tab 7. Motion to place car number 3369 on the council agenda, wastewater treatment facility filter upgrade basis of design report. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. The city's wastewater treatment facility currently operates with 2 sets of sand filters installed in 1997, which aid in the removal of nitrogen and phosphorus and are reaching the end of useful lifespan. In order to upgrade the facility's existing sand filters to cloth disc filters, a basis of design report is required to outline the design criteria for the disc filters, hydraulic grade line evaluation, and infrastructure improvements. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Hazen and Sawyer pursuant to RFQ number 201307, continuing professional architectural and engineering services for a basis of design report, opinion of probable construction costs and permitting services for the replacement of the sand filters located at the city's wastewater treatment facility for a total of $47,400.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you. Can I get some clarification as to how this investment will help us save money in the long run as compared to the sand filters? And who's making the recommendation to make the switch initially anyway? Thank you.
Councilwoman Avila.
We're going to hear from our Public Works.
Councilwoman Avila. So we've been working, actually these filters are close to 25 years old. And actually when we installed those filters, we actually bought them used from another treatment facility way back when. So they are probably close to the 30 to 35 years old in terms of usage age. The thing with sand filters, and at the time when we put those sand filters in there, the sand filter technology was kind of like at the cutting edge of technology at the time, especially for the type of treatment that we do at our wastewater treatment plant. But what happens with sand filters is you lose a lot of the sand throughout the year, and you have to continue replacing sand over and over again. It's just the sand, when you back watch the filters, you lose some of the sand and you have to replace it. So that's an ongoing operational cost that we incur with these type of filters. Also, going to this new type of filtering system, which is the disc filter, which uses like a cloth type of technology, similar to what you have at home sometimes when you see it in faucets, etc. Those work a lot cleaner. They don't have the sand issue, the loss of sand of media, because what happens, these filters, once they get used, you just take the basically the cloth, the rag, throw it away and put a new one on there. And they're constantly cleaning themselves, so it gives us a much better operation. Um, the consistency of the treatment is much more even than with sand filters. Sand filters, when they're first clean, they pick up a lot of the debris. But as they get clogged, they pick up less and less. With these, it's a constant backwash system that goes on all the time as these filters, they spin. They're in a disc and they spin. So as they're picking up the dirt, they're immediately getting cleaned for the next round, So they're constantly cleaning. So it does create a much better effluent quality that we see now. The peaks and valleys of the treatment capacity. So in essence, this is really from looking at all the different technologies that are out there, this is the one that best fits what we have here for the size of plant that we have and the type of treatment that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Breyer. I think that it's good to see some initial investment into our water infrastructure. So I'm happy to make the motion to approve this item as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a second. Second by Councilwoman Bailey. I don't think we have the opportunity for public comment yet. Let me open the public hearing. Can we get our friend in the back a microphone? Yeah, we're going to get you a microphone.
No, I was thinking when we invest those money in the new filter with this cutting edge technology, what kind of capacity do we have on our waste water treatment plant? And how are we, with the new influx of people, do we need to upgrade the plant further, or do we need to look into the possibility of getting a new plant? What is the capacity of the one we have now, and what will it be if we get 10,000 more people in Homestead? Would they be able to cope with it?
Mr. Breyer?
Okay. Our treatment capacity right now is at 5 million gallons per day. We definitely we receive much more than that, and whatever we don't treat at our treatment facility goes on to the county to be treated at their treatment facility. We have a brand new transfer pump station that we just finished building, which basically can handle all of the flow of the city if we need to. If for whatever reason our plant goes down, we can send all of our flow to the county, and we have an ongoing interlocal agreement with the county to treat our excess capacity flow. They have those. Actually, we're the only city in the county that has a wastewater treatment facility. All the other cities within the county use the county 100% of the time. So we at least are able to control some of our flow, but whatever goes above the 5 million gallons per day goes on to the county for treatment.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question for the most part? Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second before us to place this item on the council agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Next item is tab 8, motion to place car number 3359 on the council agenda. Traffic control jurisdictional agreement with Windward Isles HOA. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a traffic control jurisdictional agreement between the City of Homestead and Windward Isles HOA. The traffic control jurisdictional agreement allows Homestead police officers to enforce applicable traffic statutes on the private roadways within Windward Isles HOA.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Additional questions from council on this agreement? As I understand, there are numerous instances of these agreements in place for many of the gated communities or communities with private roads, so that they can, on a as-needed basis, call in our police department to help remind folks about speed limit and other traffic issues. Anyone in the audience or online wishing to speak on this matter? Okay, none appearing. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? Any opposed? Was that an exciting vote for you? Okay. All right. Next item is tab 9, motion to place car number 3365 on the council agenda, the American Rescue Plan Act, premium pay and vaccination and incentive for PBA lieutenants. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mayor, if I may, for this and tab 10 and tab 11, cars 3365, 3391, and 3348, read the background, because the background for each of those would be the same, and then I will read the request for them individually, if that works for you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. This is a proposed expenditure of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding under eligible use category for premium pay and vaccination incentive. On March 11, 2021, ARPA was signed into law establishing the Coronavirus Fiscal Recovery Funds. On May 10, 2021, the interim final rule established a framework for determining the types of programs and services eligible under ARPA. One of the components of ARPA stipulates that premium pay may be provided by employers to compensate workers whose duties and assignments were relied upon to maintain continuity of all critical operations. The $2,000 premium pay and the $250 vaccination incentive have been calculated based on the conditions set forth by ARPA, a comparison of premium pay amounts distributed by other municipalities, a review of the hazard pay received by sworn law enforcement via CARES Act, and additional compensation provided by the state's Florida Heroes Initiative. So I will read now the car item for 3365, which is premium pay and vaccination incentive to PBA lieutenants. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to sign a memorandum of understanding between the City of Homestead and the Police Benevolent Association Lieutenants Unit to grant $2,000 premium pay lump sum payment to all full-time sworn lieutenants. Additionally, all PBA lieutenants who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will receive a $250 vaccination incentive payment. These payments are cost neutral to the city as they are federally funded. The amount of these payments is estimated at $14,533, inclusive of fringe benefits. And the PBA earlier today, the CAR says this is contingent upon ratification by the unions, but it was ratified earlier today by the police unions.
Okay, so we'll open the discussion on tab 9 as to the premium pay and vaccination incentive for the PBA lieutenants. Council?
And actually, Mayor, if you want to do lieutenants and police officers, detective sergeants together, I could read the next one as well.
Let's go ahead and do that, then we
Okay.
can have a group discussion, a separate vote.
So for car number 3391, the American Rescue Plan Act Premium Pay and Vaccination Incentive, PBA officers, detectives, sergeants, correction officers. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to sign a memorandum of understanding between the City of Homestead and the Police Benevolent Association, officers, detectives, sergeants, and correction officers unit to grant a $2,000 premium pay lump sum payment to all full-time sworn officers within this unit. Additionally, all PBA officers within this unit who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will receive a $250 vaccination incentive payment. These payments are cost neutral to the city as they are federally funded. The amount of these payments is estimated at $293,346, inclusive of fringe benefits. And as I mentioned, this MOU was ratified by the PBA earlier today.
Thank you. Council? Vice Mayor Guzman.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to ask Colonel Kennedy, how many officers are not participating with the PBA, if you know that number?
I don't have that number, how many officers are actual members of the PBA now. I would say the majority, if not close to all of them are actual members, but I
So
don't
we'd say
think we have
98%?
I'm sorry, what number?
98% of our officers are with PBA?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And to staff, why we wouldn't include all officers?
Hi, good evening. Yes, all officers are included. They're, whether they're dues-paying members or not, they're included in the listing for the officers that would receive payment.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
Sorry. All officers are included. Whether they're dues-paying members or not, they are included in the bargaining unit. So the bargaining units that you see here include all of them.
Okay. Okay, because the way it reads, it makes it seem like it's those participating within PBA. That's the way I read it.
They're all PBA officers, whether they're dues-paying members or not. I understand where the confusion could be, but they all are considered PBA.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I have more of a comment. I wanted to just recognize the amount of stress and work that are put on the men and women of our police department is just incredible, and what they've been able to consistently do for our city and to protect and serve over the course of all the years, but specifically the last couple with COVID and everything involved. This is a minimal way for us to be able to say thank you. I wish that we could do this and more for several of the other departments that serve our city, but specifically this item, I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. For Colonel Kennedy, do we have an idea of how many officers are vaccinated at this time?
Again, I don't have that answer.
All right. Not that it matters, but I just
I'm
wanted
sorry?
to have not that it matters, I just wanted to have an idea.
Yeah, a good portion of them are, I would say, if I had to guess, I'd say maybe 70% at least are vaccinated.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, let me, Madam Manager, and you may have touched on it, I didn't catch it. The premium pay, the hazard pay is one issue. Under the guidelines, is the vaccination incentive tied to that, or is that something that was generated by staff, or are we required to add that?
We are absolutely not required to add it, Mayor. It was something that was discussed, and it was added separately. It could be viewed separately. It's absolutely not required as part of the premium pay. In fact, as we go through later on this evening a presentation about ARPA, you'll see that the vaccination numbers are totally separate from the actual premium pay. Premium pay is a separate category, one of the 4 eligible categories for ARPA money. So the vaccination incentive is separate and may be considered such.
Okay, and I just want to clarify that because the way this is presented, and apparently already been ratified on behalf of the police officers, that it's been ratified as the premium pay and including the vaccination.
And you're right, and it has been, but that does not mean that it's going to be approved by this council. But before it came to this council, we had to have the MOU ratified. And if in fact the council determined that, for example, they just wanted to do the premium pay and not the vaccination, the MOU would likely be changed, but we would be able to go forward.
Okay. And as we've heard tonight, we have no idea, well, and as I understand this, if you have been vaccinated, you're going to be paid, and if you go get vaccinated, you're going to be paid.
As it's written, yes, sir.
As it's written, yeah. And again, it's not necessarily the amount because it may not be that much, but philosophically, at this point in the pandemic and with the benefit of some hindsight, I'm really struggling with the idea of paying somebody to go get vaccinated. There are a lot of critical workers in this community who don't happen to be police officers or utility workers out in the field who took it upon themselves to go get vaccinated. and will not be compensated to do that. I want to be clear, I struggle philosophically with paying people for something they've already done voluntarily, or to pay them going forward to go get a vaccination. I mean, I kind of have to think that if you haven't gotten a vaccination by now, it's because of some kind of closely held belief. And if you let go of that belief for $250, it's not a very closely held belief. So, I'd love to hear where everybody else is coming from. I understand it's two entirely different issues. This is not as to the $2,000 piece of the component, but philosophically, I'm having a difficult time with this component across the board.
Mayor, if I may, just to make a
Sure,
clarification.
Councilwoman.
Thank you. And I was seeing these as two separate items. The $2,000 premium pay is separate from the vaccination incentive, and that's correct, right?
Yes, Councilwoman, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm with you on the vaccination item. I think that it's an incentive. So, if the police department is pushing and incentivizing the vaccination, and that's what they're seeking the support in, I'm happy to support it too. But I'd like to I'd like to stand on the majority side for that particular item. But for sure, the premium pay, I'm 100% in support of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I was one who may have started this conversation with the city manager at some point, because my employer currently does provide both an incentive for vaccination. Now, again, that was done, early on in the pandemic. But as of earlier this week, my employer's now mandated personnel that they have to get it. But they're still continuing to pay them the vaccination incentive, because that's what they did for most of the other employees in the organization. And I also understand that there's some folks that do have that belief that do not want to get vaccinated, or for religious beliefs, or for medical reasons, and I think that's something that we definitely need to look at, if we're going to offer this incentive. If there is a medical reason that the individual cannot get the vaccination, we ought to take a look at that and see what other options are out there for an incentive as well, because some people do have autoimmune issues that this vaccination can hurt them. So I fall on the side of leaning towards the incentive. I know we're towards the end of pandemic, but if you have a 70% rate right now, let's go ahead and get everybody in and let's get it over with. I can tell you that my personal staff, 50% of them are unvaccinated at this point, and some of them are going to try and refuse the mandate. That's something we have to work through over the next few months. But, I understand people's thought processes, and I'm against mandates personally, but at the same time, that's, what my boss says we got to do. Everybody should take the opportunity to get the vaccination if they think it's the right thing for themselves. I think that you should look out for others that you also may be working with and take that opportunity. But again, you do have that option to stand on your own and not get that vaccination. So I will be supporting the next three tabs, and all three of these include officers, lieutenants, and city electrical workers and city staff under the director level, correct?
That's correct. And when I read the third car, that'll become clear, Councilman.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. Do I see anybody to my right who would like to weigh in further? Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. I struggle with this as well. As much as I believe in the vaccine, I know that there are also many people that aren't able to. I think the incentive programs were very helpful, and I supported them when it had to do with reaching communities that maybe didn't have transportation or all the facts. I would probably be better with adding that $250 on to the $2,000, because I feel like our officers have all the information that they need to make that decision, and to hold that $250 back from somebody who isn't medically able to receive the vaccine, I would have an issue with that. As far as it being mandated, I'm not comfortable with it. I've struggled with that for a long time with my school personally. And I've seen teachers who are vaccinated get COVID and teachers that weren't not. So I don't think we have enough facts to be able to say for sure this is something that would help the community. So I personally would either like to see that 250 added to the 2,000 for all of our officers across the board or not included. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And as I understood you in the presentation, though, the 2,000 was calculated under the guidelines. That's not really an arbitrary amount, correct?
Well, it is somewhat arbitrary, Mayor, and that's why there's two amounts, the 1,000 and 2,000. The difference between the suggested vaccination incentive and the premium pay is that the premium pay is its separate eligible category. There's 4 eligible categories for the release of these funds, and one of them is premium pay. So in theory, the premium pay suggestion could be $2,250. I don't know. I'll defer to our attorney if then the MOU would have to be re-ratified if that's what we did, and or if we just, I'm assuming it would have to be re-ratified, and or if the 250 is not included, I think we could go forward with the premium pay. I'll ask my attorney.
I think that if we're going to roll this back in, I think we're going to have to re-ratify. So if we're going to add the 250, I think we definitely.
I agree.
Definitely.
Absolutely, if it's
going
rolled
to
into
be
the premium pay.
re-ratified.
But if the council should determine no vaccination incentive, yes, premium pay at 2,000, 1,000, can we go forward now without having to re-ratify?
At 2,000, 1,000 without, we're just taking away the 250,
Yes.
taking it off the table?
Yes.
They already voted on it with the 250? I think we're going to have to rewind it, because if it was already included, we're going to have to back it out. So if we're going to make the changes, I would say we should bring it back for ratification. I guess we just need direction on which change to make, if we're going to make any change at all.
Vice Mayor?
If you make the change, when does it come back before us?
Next week?
We could, well, no, it would have to be ratified. It would take time. It took us quite a while. We were going to bring this item last month, but we couldn't because it hadn't been ratified yet. It takes a while for the unions to get the item before their members and have it voted on. So I would hope December, but I don't know.
I'd rather get this money in our officers' pockets as soon as possible. So if we would need to leave the incentive for the vaccine, then my motion would be to leave it as it's written today.
Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree completely. Maybe we could get a number of any officers that do have medical conditions and then possibly look at that later on and see if there's some way that we can make that right.
We could certainly look at that later on, right, Matt? We could look at that later on.
Sure.
Yeah,
Could be an additional
we could do
change.
that.
All right, just need some clarification. So we either have to approve both or none at all today? We can't just approve the
Or you give us
premium pay?
direction to go back and have it ratified with an amendment, and then it would come back to you that way, in either form,
So if we were
either
to,
with or without.
if we were to approve just the premium pay, it would still have to go back to get ratified,
It'd have
correct?
to be ratified because it was included in the original MOU.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
I just want to point out, too, the Vice Mayor's point about getting it in the hands of the officers. Let's not lose sight of the fact that under a prior distribution of COVID-related money, they already received $1,500 apiece in premium pay, whereas our electrical workers and others who were required to be on the streets have received nothing to date. That's correct.
And the third call, which I have yet to read, if you'd like, I could read it now so we could bring it in as part of the discussion. That would be, you want me to do that?
Let's go ahead and do that.
It's tab 11. And card number 3348. This is American Rescue Plan Act premium pay and vaccination incentive to IBEW and non-bargaining. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to sign a memorandum of understanding between the City of Homestead and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers to grant premium pay lump sum payments to city employees as per the categories listed below. IBEW field staff, $2,000, and IBEW administrative staff, $1,000. Additional, all IBEW employees who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will receive a $250 vaccination incentive payment. Non-bargaining staff, except the city manager, assistant city managers, and department heads, will receive $1,000 premium pay lump sum payments. All non-bargaining personnel who are fully vaccinated, and that would include the others that I just exempted, will receive a $250 vaccination incentive payment. These payments are cost neutral to the city as they are federally funded. The amount of these payments is estimated at $639,172, inclusive of fringe benefits.
Thank you. So, at least as to the third of the three premium pay items tonight, that's not yet been ratified. Is that correct?
I
Or does it-
apologize for not mentioning that. Yes, that was unanimously ratified by the IBEW.
So, forgive me, but wasn't that putting the cart before the horse?
There was a discussion about which would come first, but our lawyers advised us that no, it was not putting the cart before the horse, that before coming to council, we should have the unions look at the MOU and ratify them. And actually, Mayor, that was why we had originally intended to come earlier to you last month, but we weren't able to because we had to go through the process with the unions.
You really put, I feel as though I'm really put in a bad position here. Because I understand, you know, there are city employees who have not gotten anything, who did not have the opportunity to have an extra $1 million of overtime go into their department, and they've gotten nothing. We've got another group that already got, I'm told, $1 million of overtime in their department and already got $1,500. You know, let me make this analogy. There was somebody who said we ought to give the $19 million of COVID relief back to the public. Why don't we just give every Homestead resident who's vaccinated $250 and call it a day? We are creating different classes of people here that, depending upon what job you have or who you work for, you may or may not get paid to have a vaccination. And it's bad policy. I really have a problem with this, but you've put us in a situation where it's going to be mid to late December before we can put the money in their hands. And I want to clarify one more thing. In your presentations, you talked about this being revenue neutral. Did I misread when I read that we're going to be responsible for pension amounts on this as well as our share of payroll taxes? So it's not really neutral.
The reason these numbers are a little bit strange is because it is covered under ARPA. We included those fringe benefits in. So that's why it's revenue neutral, because ARPA does cover funds, our taxes.
Including pension and all
Not
the
pension, though, correct?
I didn't catch that. But
It's a good question.
It was
I'd
a
like to
relatively
hear.
straightforward question. Above and beyond this, are we going to be responsible for our share of the pension contributions for these additional?
Our understanding is that any of those costs would be covered by ARPA. What I was trying to explain is that in this fiscal year, the contribution for the pension plan has already been predetermined, so it has no impact on this year's pension contribution. If it does have an impact in the future one, then again, the ARPA portion would be able to cover whatever that delta would be. But it is our understanding that any fringe benefits related to ARPA-related compensation would be covered.
That's going to further whittle away what's available to deploy to lay a foundation for the future and help the general public. Correct? Next year. Okay. All right. So I think we have a motion and a second to approve the first item for the lieutenants as presented. Is that correct? Vice Mayor? Yes.
I made the motion, but forgive me, but I'd like to understand a little bit of the groups you were mentioning of who's been paid already, who hasn't been paid, so I can have a clear picture.
Vice Mayor, what the mayor was alluding to is that police officers previously had received what was called hazard pay under the CARES Act. And the police officers, it's estimated, I don't know an exact amount, but approximately $1,500. And the mayor was indicating that the other workers that were on the street under the CARES Act were not eligible to receive hazard pay. Only the police officers were. So they're the employees who received money previously.
Understood. Okay. So you were mentioning there's a motion on for tab 9 for the lieutenants. Do we need to vote on each one individually?
Yes.
Okay, I stand by the motion.
All right. As presented.
As presented.
All right. Who seconded the Vice Mayor's motion?
Well, I don't like being in the position of, having to decide who to reward for executing a personal choice. But given the circumstances and given the timing, and I want to validate your concerns. I don't necessarily, feel like any department has been overcompensated for hazard pay, but certainly the issue that you're referring to with regards to the $250 for the COVID, I completely understand. But given the circumstances, I'm going to go ahead and second the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on tab 9 as presented. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak on this matter either online or in the building? All right, so let's deliver the microphone again. We're on the way.
Yeah, I think my personal opinion is basically very simple. I think Steve Lawson has a good point, and Erica too, because when we have different categories of public servants, they do that because they have a calling for it. The police department is great people. The fire department are great people. Our electrical workers are great people. The people who drive the garbage trucks are great people. And in the order of fairness, fairness is a word that we like to use, but we don't use it. We like to put fairness as a stamp. This is fair, but in many cases, when it comes to make fairness, we have a reluctancy to do it. In this case here, we could do something about it. We could be nice to the other departments too, because they put in the work, they show up for work, they are just as have the same opportunity to contract COVID like the police officer. All of them are great people, and all of them should have some kind of compensation, regardless of what the federal government decides. And if we want to donate money to people just because they're gonna get vaccinated, fine. I went to get my vaccination without being compensated, and I know many other people who did the same. And some people basically spend half a day in line waiting to get their famous vaccination. They didn't get compensated. They lost money doing so. And so now we are going to give $245 to people who don't even get vaccinated. That's ludicrous. I think fairness has a priority, and Stephen, you should stick to it. That's my word.
Thank you. Anyone further in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? Just to save some time, yeah. Well, if you'll go ahead and hand you the microphone, and if you'll give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Faye Richardson. The reason I wanted to speak on it because you're saying that they can get compensated $250 for getting the vaccination. Okay, I'm a cafeteria sub and I work front line with the students at the school. Why wouldn't we be able to get compensated? Because we have kids that are coming into the school with COVID. And we're dealing with this every day. Last year, my son was out of school 5 consecutive days, like back to back, 5 weeks back to back, because of COVID in the school system.
Thank you. Understand. All right. Is there anyone further? We'll close the public hearing, and we will. We have a motion and a second to approve tab 9. Premium pay of $2,000 plus a $250 vaccination incentive for the PBA lieutenants. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, let's move on to tab 10 that's been presented, and this is for the other officers, not part of as part of the PBA bargaining unit. Do we have a motion to place this item on the council agenda?
Mayor, if I may.
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
This course of action that we're taking tonight with approving it as it's read tonight is the fastest way we can get the funds to everyone, even though some have already been paid. Is that correct?
That's my understanding from management staff in light of the need to, if we didn't approve it as presented, it would have to go back and be re-ratified, and then monetary distributions cannot take place until that time.
I'll make the motion on tab 10.
I'll second for the same reasons as mentioned.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve tab 10 as presented. Close the public hearing. All in favor? And tab 11, car number 3348, for the premium pay and vaccination incentive for our IBEW and non-bargaining unit employees. We have a motion on tab 11. Moved by Vice Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second for the same, thank you.
Second by Councilwoman Avila. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all. And I want to clarify the public and those of you that commented. This pay is with respect to those whose jobs absolutely required them, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Manager, to be out on the streets or required them to go to their respective city building to work. This does not go to everyone. Anyone who could do their job from home is not included in this. Is that a generally fair assessment, Madam Manager?
Yes, generally fair. There are employees who worked a great deal of time at home, but just about everybody had to, at some point, come in. So that's why it's so encompassing.
Thank you.
But for the employees that I mentioned, don't get it.
Thank you. All right. Tab 12, motion to place car number 3382 on the council agenda. regarding policy for street renaming and co-designation. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends that the mayor and council select a board or committee and approve the attached resolution adopting an amended policy for naming, renaming, or co-designation of streets within the city of Homestead. In 2007, council approved Resolution 2007-02-15, establishing procedures for the Human Relations Board to review all requests for the naming, renaming, and co-designation of city of Homestead streets. In 2010, that board was dissolved, but the naming, renaming, and co-designation process was not reassigned to any other board or committee. So we're looking for direction as to which board or committee the council would like to handle that process previously handled by the board that no longer exists. And some of the potential boards include Art and Public Places, Historic Preservation, the CR Community Relations Board, Tourism Committee. There's also SWAC, Education. We just don't know what the council would like to be the most appropriate board to handle that duty.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any initial thoughts from council on the inquiry from staff? Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you, Mayor. Does it have to be a committee or can it be a department like Development Services?
We can make it, you can direct the staff to evaluate these things. I think in the past, they wanted some community input, and that's how we ended up with the committee. I think that was part of the consensus as to why we did that. If you want to take a different tact, we can look at how to do that for sure. It'll require a reworking of the policy a little bit, but we can bring something back to you if that's the approach that you want to take.
Thank you. I think I like the approach of encouraging our committees to submit and apply to bring the ideas to us for consideration, but I'm leaning more towards, in terms of logistics and evaluation of the application, it being in the hands of our Development Services Department. With all the vacancies we have on our committees, I think that we'd be overtaxing the participants that we have right now, and I'd like to keep them focused on the tasks at hand now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I would tend to agree, whether it be Development Services or perhaps a committee headed by the manager and her assistants. For me, it kind of enables it to be more expeditiously dealt with, and for lack of better expression at this point, kind of takes the politics out of it. Staff is somewhat isolated and insulated from that, and let's face it, there's probably a bit of that in every committee, and that's not disparaging any of the committees or the members. So perhaps management staff, but I think in terms of getting it done timely, that that general in-house idea would probably be the better way to go. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. How does the county, how do they process these applications? Does anybody know how the county does it?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
Thank you.
Okay. So is our response then to talk to us about how the county does it, and or perhaps look at having the manager create a floating committee?
I'm fine with that, and through your experience and process, if you want to come back with an additional recommendation, maybe after identifying if the county has a better way to catch the mouse, then bring it back to us. But for now, I'd like to see these applications get through and get processed, and for our committees to be advised that we do have a process for it, so we can start getting the recommendations in, if that's the will of the residents. Thank you.
So we can certainly see what the county does, and we can certainly come up with a plan that staff would be able to do this. But I guess my question, Matt, is with respect to the item before the council now. It was going to recommend approval of the resolution. I don't think that would be appropriate.
No, I don't think it's appropriate now. I think we're getting direction to go in a
we'd have to
change tact, and we'd bring something back to you that reflected the instruction that you're giving us now.
We'll come back.
Thank you. I think that.
Will you be able to come back to us with the council with the item? Because I'm aware of some requests for name changes that might be pending.
I mean,
So what-
I think
what's
we
the
were closing
timing?
out the agenda tomorrow, weren't we? So, like, I don't know if we're going to have a plan in place by tomorrow when we close the agenda.
We have a short week, so we're trying to get it done early because
But-
we're out Thursday.
For purpose of addressing the one pending issue that I'm aware of that I think initiated this conversation, do we have a mechanism whereby tonight we could go ahead and authorize or approve that it be a manager's committee as an interim policy?
I mean, ultimately, you'll take the final action on this as a council. So if you're looking for an evaluation against the criteria that already existed and you'd like staff to take a look at it, and because the criteria as presented were going to remain the
exist.
same. Those were not going to change. We're talking about a process change. So if there's something that's on the books that we're aware of that we want to deal with expeditiously, I think if staff's comfortable, we can review it against that criteria and bring it back to you and for the co-designation.
Very good. Thank you, Councilman Fletcher.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just kind of going back in history a little bit, you know, at times we have asked city staff to perform an evaluation, and at times they've also come back with no recommendation. I think we need to look and see what the county does. But again, I do agree for this initial assessment that we have the staff take a look at it and give us their best guess for it. But long-term, I think we're going to have to come up to a different direction, you know, for the rest of.
No question, but we've had one that's been languishing, and I'd like to see it come to resolution. So do you have what you need from us?
I believe
so.
we do.
Thank you. All right. Tab 13, motion to place car number 3396 on the council agenda, the implied Galaxy light sculpture for the Homestead Cybarium. You do have a PowerPoint, right?
Yes, but I'll read it first, and
Okay.
there's a little presentation for you at the end. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement in substantially the form attached with Seth Palmater for the implied Galaxy light sculpture at the Cybarium for a price not to exceed $166,000, the artist fee $156,000, and the allowance to extend electrical service for the sculpture $10,000. This is an agreement for the installation of public art at the Cybarium pursuant to City Code Section 32-48, which requires the city to provide public art equal to 1.5% of the construction costs for a new project. At the Cybarium, that amount is $156,000. The art and artist we're asking you to approve tonight was found via an open call for artists posted on the Miami-Dade County Art and Public Places listing service on March 8th, 2021. It's important to note that due to the timing of the project, the Public Art Committee was not involved since the master plan was only approved last month. Funds for this piece were part of the Cybarium budget. They are not from the Public Art Fund. The art design concept is a lighted, three-dimensional, decorative, artistic feature that is seamlessly affixed, integrated, and suspended from the existing ceiling, open space infrastructure, and architecture of the stairway to the mezzanine level. The art is visible from the first floor, the main stairway, and the mezzanine level of the library. The art is designed to be visible during daylight and evening hours and involves LED lighting, changing colors, evidence of movement, etc., which stimulates changing effects of the sky, constellations, colorful galaxies, lights, or similar effects, providing a spectacular visual identity for the space. There will now, Mr. Mayor, be a short video showing some of Seth Palmater's previous work and his concept for the Cybarium titled Implied Galaxy.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Council? Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you. No doubt that it's gorgeous and very impressive. I wasn't sure how you could add more art to the Cibarium. I mean, the Cibarium itself, the concept, the walls, the whole vision of our steampunk upstairs, it's so captivating, and it's like a concentration of art there. But I do love it. If we have to spend the money, then I think you did a fantastic job picking out the item. I love that it's got a galaxy-style planetarium type feel to it. I'd love to have some mood music inside the Cibarium if that's an option. It tends to get really quiet in there. But I would have loved to have some of our some feedback from our Public Art Committee on it, even though they couldn't participate in the majority of the process. I think that there was a missed opportunity there to maybe just even get a blessing from them. I think would have been appropriate. I can't wait for the rest of downtown to catch up to what the Cibarium offers and what it looks like and how it appeals to people. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I just want to add, and I've shared these concerns with the manager and her staff, is that I share the concerns that other committees weren't involved, that this was chosen by staff. I'd like to have the opportunity to see what some of the other submissions were. I want to thank the manager for confirming my concern that this is not a reduction from the Public Art Fund, that this was part of the original Cibarium budget. We're going to keep that other fund sacred and let them do their master plan. And again, now that master plan is in place, any future pieces of art will go through and be vetted by that committee, and then come to the council. What's the time frame on this, on the installation?
So we're looking at probably approximately a 6-month timeline. What is going maybe a challenge is obviously the supply chain issues that we're experiencing worldwide, since most of these, the sculpture is made of metal. And the artist is also on the line if you have any more specific questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the artist or staff? Vice Mayor Guzman?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd love to ask the artist where the inspiration came from. Is it from another country? Is it from here? Is it just his thoughts? Just.
Clearly. Would you chime in and see if we...
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Seth, thank you so much for including us, and we're happy to answer those questions. Really our guidance for the Public Art Project came very much from the Public Art Committee, from our first presentation to the full Public Art Committee. We had actually submitted a different design, and after we presented our initial thoughts, they asked us to go back to the drawing table and really sort of weave in the whole atmosphere of the steampunk aesthetic in a way that was appropriate and not distracting for the space, considering it's such a vibrant public space and you have performances and things there. It needed to be powerful when it needed to be powerful, and quiet at other times when there were different functions happening there. So,
and the planetary component on the, I believe it's the second floor, was brought to my attention. So we wove that in.
So we felt that the Public Art Commission and the city stakeholders actually were very much the drivers in what the final aesthetic was. And even though we don't have a contract yet, we've been working really diligently for many months to refine this design. And it's been a very good, engaged process.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify briefly, although Stacy and Seth just mentioned the Public Art Commission, they have been dealing with staff and the construction management team. So apologies for any confusion there.
Thank you.
Oh, then maybe that's our confusion. We thought that was the Public Arts Commission.
Okay, and let's see how to phrase this. I'm not an artist, and I don't ever claim to be. I refer to Councilwoman Bailey mainly, and now Susan Sorrentino. But how do you put a price on art? Because I could see someone looks at a Picasso and they'll pay $50 million for it, and somebody sees something else and they pay $500 for it. How does art get priced? If anyone can.
Well, that is a good question. I think I'm going to let Seth answer some of it, and then I will chime in with the other half of it.
Sure. Time and material, mostly time evaluating the stakeholders' needs and desires. The logistics involved with bringing a project through fabrication and shipping it, packaging it, and the installation. All of these components add up to basically a wholesale pricing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and so I think your question is very well put, because it's actually a thorn in my side when you see public art that is, I would say, really insignificant for the scope of the budget that it's offered. And Seth and I tend to be real outliers as far as how we deliver very large, very significant work for more modest budgets. We feel very strongly that public art is fundamentally important, and if the public doesn't feel like they've gotten the value for it, it hurts our industry. So we work extremely hard to provide significant scope and value for the dollars, the budget that's given to us. And we exclusively work in public art. We don't work in galleries. We don't sell work independently. We only tailor our work to the public art budgets that are given to us. So if you give us a $50,000 budget, we will do our utmost, given all the criteria that you define, to give you the most value for that work. And so, for the Cybrarium, we were given a very specific budget, and then we looked at the architecture available, the floor print, basically the footprint available to us. And, this sculpture is, upwards of 56 feet on one dimension and 45 feet on another dimension. This is a very large sculpture for the budget. And I think that most people would be very hard-pressed to find a sculpture of this scope and scale and the caliber of materials for the same money. We're pretty basic, humble, mom-and-pop people. We do this because we love it. And we have to, pay our bills, but in the end, we really thrive on making communities better.
Thank you. And the last question is, other places around the country that sculptures of this magnitude are placed?
You mean other than Homestead? This type of sculpture is placed all over the country, in all, primary cities, tertiary cities, secondary cities. Public art, especially atrium art, is extremely popular, and you'll see it in airports and universities. It is, and the majority of our work is atrium work, though we really enjoy roundabouts and freestanding work as well. But this is quite common and expected form of art to be found in a public setting.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Is that it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you to those online. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak? Please come forward to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Susan Sorrentino, 2610 Northeast 3rd Drive. I'm speaking to you as a layperson, not as a chairwoman of PAC. How's the scale? I'd like to address that to the artist. The presentation was a lot of artwork that you've placed all over the country, and only the last snippet was what you'll be doing here in Cybrarium. I'm curious about the scale and how you came up with the size and how much space is there. Is this going to be overwhelming, was my concern. So if you can address how you came up with the scale for this piece, what is the size of it, and especially once it's illuminated, does it cover the whole second floor? Or is it suspended up higher? That was my question.
That's a really good question, and so the overall, there are 4 separate elements in this sculpture. There's 4 discrete sculptural components that sort of weave together to make a dynamic whole. And so overall, the length and width is 40 feet by 56 feet. The way we determine how big a sculpture is, one, it's usually the stakeholder hopes, first of all. We design towards the hopes and the feedback that we are given by the end user. So that's number one. In this circumstance, we basically took a look at the building, a plan view of what the floor plan would be, and tried to figure out a way. There's many columns in this space. This is a dynamic space, and there is a lot happening in the space. So our challenge was to figure out how to weave in an artwork that was logical, that fit, that did not look like it was poured or jammed into the space. And I think we did a very good job of that. And this is a delicate sculpture. Even though it looks very long, it is a very ethereal, diaphanous veil of art. And so it is going to change depending on what the skies are doing outside, what the lighting is doing inside. It is absolutely a quiet sculpture when the light is quiet inside, and it is a very dynamic sculpture when it's very sunny. It really sort of moves and flows with whatever the ambient light is happening in the space. So that makes it a very interactive and engaging piece of art. I do not think it's going to overwhelm the space. That said, you know, we still have a small amount of design refinement that is allowed with the city. If they came back to us and asked us to change a few things, we certainly could. But I think that this is the right piece for the footprint that is available to us. There were many areas of this Cybrarium that the art is not energizing, but it will be visible and prominent from many, many good vantages.
Thank you.
I did build, a three-dimensional CAD model of the building to spend some time in the space. One of my considerations, I wanted to make sure that that the art does not obstruct the view of the stage area for theater moments. And so I feel like we've achieved that. There we go.
Yeah, the sculpture starts out from various corners, and the energy of it moves towards a center focal point. So it's, you know, it's doing many things. It's serving many different criteria, and I think that it will be really exciting.
I'm not questioning the beauty of the piece. It sounds beautiful, although all we saw was a drawing. My 40 feet long and 56 feet wide. Is that, how big is the room? Is it 80 feet high? I mean, you know, is this gonna?
Oh.
It just seems big to me. That's all.
I think it's a lot smaller than what those numbers, illustrate.
What
the
is
rod structure. I'm
I
sorry?
just don't want you to get here and put it up and have it dragging on the floor from the ceiling. You know,
very
I'm sure it's
good.
going to be beautiful.
We have, we have an absolutely precise CAD model of the entirety of that first and second floor. So there's not an inch that is going to be out of place. So, you know, the precision of which we pre-design and build for, the criteria are exacting. And I'm sorry you didn't get to see more images. We had given the city quite a few different renderings, and I apologize that you didn't get those presented today. I'm sure that those are available.
And before I put this project on the shop,
The presentation
before I
is
put this project on the
90%
shop
of things
floor.
you've done in the past. I would have liked to see this piece or something similar to it presented to council. I'm sure it'll be wonderful, but check on the size.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
Thank
saying.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker. Again, give us your name and address for the record, and if you're comfortable doing so, feel free to pull down your mask.
Okay. My name is Sharon Johnson. I'm calling, mine is different than what she's saying. But I'm saying, beauty is good, right? The arts and everything. What about the people? The people count more. What about homes, clothes? People need jobs. Y'all, I understand y'all want beauty, but we need more than that. People need jobs, to take care of their family. Y'all, I understand y'all looking at all this, but what about the things that what the community needs? They need a good place to lay their head. They need jobs. See, y'all blessed. Each one of y'all got a good job. But what about people that's trying to get a job? It's not fair. Y'all understand what y'all trying to do? That's good. It's good to have beauty, but y'all just got to be smart too. You got to be smart about how you spend the money, how you do the money, and how you handle it. You just can't just pick out things. What about the community?
Let me interrupt you real quick. That's our next discussion.
Yeah, okay.
That's our next tab.
I just want to know.
That we're going to have an in-depth discussion
That's right. That's what we
about
need.
that rescue money and that very thing.
Yeah, because that's important.
Housing, utilities, rent.
If you don't satisfy the community, then the people that vote for you, they're going to say, I made a mistake. You see? I'm just saying, we have to be wise. You just can't just pick up something because someone's talking about art. What about art? Good is good, but what about what comes with art? It comes with that art can be towed down. You see what I'm saying? Okay, then what happens? You're paying more money to get another art, another designer. That's wasting money. See, they're doing the you know. I'm trying to get, but I'm just saying, it's always good to be wise. Don't just because people talking and what they can do. Look around. You see all these people in the world ain't got nothing. And we trying to survive, and we come to you because you are our leaders, and we need y'all our guidance. You see what I'm saying? But that's all I'm saying. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, so do we need, you need a motion to approve the acquisition of the art piece? Do we have that motion, Councilwoman?
I would love to motion it. I had one quick question. As far as our code is concerned, when one of these new construction items comes up and a piece has to be designed within the budget, how close, I'm assuming it has to be on the piece of land that was constructed? I'm wondering because I know there was a fountain that was created and it wasn't immediately on the property. Can a building, can a development opt to build a piece of public art somewhere other than where that new construction is happening?
So the piece of code that we're talking about with this item is related specifically to government buildings. So it has to be part of the government building. I'll defer to Matt on the other item.
So Zach's correct. When you're dealing with the government buildings, there's a certain percentage of the construction costs, and it's a defined term, that needs to be dedicated to public art for the public facility. We allow the dedication of public art or money into the trust fund when we're dealing with the private development, and that's how we aggregate the funds to place the art where we want and what the PAC will be overseeing as we go forward. Is that?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Thank you. Well, I'm very excited for the inspiration that I'm sure this piece will create in the already fantastic Cybrarium, and I look forward to seeing it there. And I motion to move it forward.
We have a second. Second by Councilwoman Avila. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, tab 14, card number 3390, allocation of American Rescue Plan Act funding. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. There is a brief PowerPoint that I'll run through with you once I get my clicker. How's it work?
Just click there.
This one?
Yeah, that's forward. This one's back.
Thanks. Mayor, Council, on March 11th, 2021, as you know, the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, was signed into law. Homestead allotted amount is $19,192,087. The funding will come in two different tranches. The first was already received, $9,596,043.50, and the balance anticipated in May of 2022. And the interim final rule, I alluded to this before, that there's 4 eligible categories. 1 is public health and economic impacts. 2 is premium pay for eligible workers. That's the category under which we just awarded those dollars that we talked about a few minutes ago. Number 3 is general revenue loss, and number 4 is investment in infrastructure. The mayor and city council previously discussed these funds and potential uses for them on May 27th at a council workshop and June 8th, 2021 at a COW meeting. And what I'm going to go through now, you'll see numbers and you'll see suggested uses of these dollars, but this evening we are not asking you to make decisions on this. We're really just going through what we talked about before and what you've mentioned as being important things you would like to see funded. And we have dollars on them, but nothing is set in stone here. And any use of these funds would have to come back to council for approval. So this slide and the 2 slides after it are all under that first category, public health and economic impact. So potential uses: provide commercial assistance, small business grants, rental assistance programs, job fairs, business consulting, seminars. Provide residential assistance, mortgage and rental assistance, utilities. Improving outdoor spaces. This would include improvements to parks, public plazas, and outdoor recreational spaces. And one item specifically we're going to mention is design and permitting for phase 1 of the Homestead Sports Complex, which I'll speak to more in this slide. We have outlined a phase 1 for the development of the Homestead Sports Complex, which includes a track, a rubberized track surrounding a lighted turf soccer field with a stage. The estimated cost is $7.2 million. And staff has currently found potential grant funding in the amount of $5 million. And as you can see by the dates in March and in September, August, June of this year, we'll be going after those grants. And the funding gap, assuming we get these dollars, would be about $2.2 million. The design and permitting estimated cost for phase 1, for this phase 1 of this development, is $1.1 million. And potentially, if the ARPA money was to be used, and if the council directed this evening that potentially we could use the ARPA money, and again, this is just an estimate, but what we would do, if that's the council's desire, is we would go out to bid for the design and permitting, and then we would come back to council with how much the design and permitting for this phase would cost, and suggest that the ARPA money be used to fund it. And hopefully it would be less than $1.1 million. Also, still under public health and economic impact, potential uses is provide housing assistance, help with affordable housing, help first-time home buyers, evidence-based community violence intervention programs, youth assistance programs, similar perhaps to the Miami-Dade College Magic Summer Program, which was the one expenditure that the council has already approved and has already been spent. And the $123,528, that's actually the cost for the assistance for vaccination efforts. That's the number for the incentive. And the number for assistance to nonprofits, it's $112,949. I think that clearly speaks to the fact that these numbers are not set in stone. But what we did, we just backed in numbers so that the final number would come to the actual 19 million that we have. If the council decided they wanted less money or more money for any of these, or not use these monies for these at all, they could do so. Providing public safety, this is contemplated for ShotSpotter, if we're able to do ShotSpotter, and if it's eligible for this use. So that's the only reason that that $300,000 is in there. And the next one, the next category is premium pay for eligible workers. We don't need to go through this because this is what we just approved in those three cars. And then revenue loss, and essentially this is to replace lost revenue due to COVID-19. This is actual number is $1,558,161, and how this money will be used is much more flexible than some of the other categories, because absent a few things you can't use it for, it generally can go back into the general fund, and you have a lot of discretion with how you could use these dollars. And the final category, investments in infrastructure. Again, these numbers are not set in stone, but much of what we talked about before and what the council suggested: broadband infrastructure, cybersecurity, water and sewer eligible infrastructure, water meter replacement, and all of the numbers here. And again, we had to add up to the $19,192,087. So the first interim report was submitted on August 31st, 2021, for the time period of the award date through July 31st, 2021. And the Treasury's reporting deadline for the first project and expenditure report has been postponed from October 31st, 2021 to January 31st, 2022. And the spending deadlines for this money, the costs must be incurred by December 31st, 2024, and the period of performance will run until December 31st, 2026. So in summary, and again, you are not bound by these numbers or any of the items I mentioned, but this is just an idea of what it could potentially look like. And if you did approve the spending of the $9,000, you also approved this premium pay and vaccination incentive, which adds up to $947,051, which leaves $18,236,036 if the council directs staff to go forward with the proposal for the design and permitting for phase one. That amount would potentially be reduced to $17,100,000. And that is our presentation.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Councilman Fletcher.
Yeah, thank you. I want to sign up for the design and permitting payment for $1.1 million. I think I'm in the wrong business if I'm sitting up here and not going after that account. I think those numbers are elevated.
It was an estimate that was given to us, Councilman, and it was an estimate that was given to us, but certainly we're with you. We're hoping that that comes in at a lot less.
Okay. No, I appreciate that, but just, you know, we tend to elevate some numbers sometimes, and understanding that, you know, these aren't set in stone. I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to utilize this funding, you know, for public assistance, to include some of the items that the young lady spoke about here a few moments ago, with housing and food distribution and things of that nature, should we want to take a look at that. There are a lot of unfortunate folks that have hit hard times here in recent history, and we need to step up and help those less fortunate than us in the community. And I know we do that a lot of different ways, but again, a lot of this money is earmarked for that, I believe, to include some of the projects that we've already identified here. But I truly want to make sure that we are on top of every dollar when we're going out for estimates and quotes from these individuals, that they don't just see the city of Homestead's coming to us with American Rescue Act money and we're going to write them a check.
Understood. And when we go out to bid, it will be competitively bid so that we will get the best price for it.
Well, I truly hope so, and I haven't seen that in records in several items we've discussed. I believe that people see the city coming just like they see other companies coming, and they tend to elevate their prices because they know we're going to pay it. I'm going to get off my soapbox right now, but I believe that there's a lot of different options for here. I don't believe that all of these are the right way to go. That's going to be a long-term decision we're going to have to make, but we definitely need to monitor this like it was our own bank account, personally, to ensure that we're spending the community's money correctly. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the residents that came out today and know that I personally, I'm sure all of us do, appreciate everything that you have to say. This has come with many, many conversations of how can we balance what we have to make sure that we are improving the quality of life for our residents. The $1 million art piece, that is something completely separate. That's something that has to do with the construction of that building. I want to be clear, we're not just approving some $1 million art piece right now in these very difficult times. So please continue to come out, personally reach out if you would like a little more clarity on this. But you know, as far as these items that you see, it's a balance between our infrastructure, which is in desperate need of us to look into, and of course all of those programs that'll help with work, with rental and utility assistance, and food. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you, Mayor. My question for staff is, did we get all the questions that we had answered? And if you don't have them today, when you come back, I'd like to know, I'd like to be reminded what were the questions and what were the answers.
I'm glad you brought that up, Councilwoman. We have not gotten answers to all the questions, believe it or not. And in fact, we just sent another question today. But what we can do is we can remind you of all the questions we sent to the Treasury Department, and we'll also give you some of the answers. A lot of the answers are very vague, and they suggest, well, look at this part of what's allowed and maybe talk to your lawyers. So it's still not abundantly clear, but we can definitely remind you of what we've been asking. But some things are clear. For example, the premium pay that you approved, that's crystal clear. So things like that, and some of the uses that you guys have suggested and that were listed in some of the slides, we know that those are allowable. So, you know, I think we're in pretty good shape if there's something that the council, and to Councilman Fletcher's point, like, we're not going to do anything without coming back to council, obviously, for approval.
Thank you. I do like that we have placement for our parks and our improvement, especially the sports complex. Also our programming for within the police department, and but I don't see anything with regards to our policies around development services, and we've had extensive discussion on this with during our workshops. Do we have a different plan of action for that, or because we did discuss using the ARPA funds to reignite our economy, and you know, that certainly falls under revenue losses with businesses and being closed, and how can we fund our mission with rewriting our code, revising our process, and getting businesses open faster? And is that, what is our plan if it's not in this this PowerPoint? Thank you.
Just give me 1 second, because I want to see some of the questions we asked in that regard. And also, we can come back to you with information with regards, because remember we talked about potentially a new a system, like software system. There's probably a better and more efficient and less costly way to do that, which we can bring back with more details.
Okay, great. Yeah, I look forward to having additional development workshops where we can continue those conversations and take into consideration whatever recommendations our director has for us to consider. In addition to, what about infrastructure for improving transportation? I mean, we talk about it all the time when we are approving these development applications. What about our trolley system? Is that falling under our parks section at all? Like, are we going to add a trolley stop to our sports complex or additional trolleys? Maybe a lot to unpack, but when we have these continuing conversations or emails or after this meeting, if you could just touch on those for me, I would appreciate it.
Sure, and the trolleys would not be an eligible expense, but there are other dollars another grant, an FTA grant that we have will address some of the trolley issues. And if there's something in infrastructure that the council wanted to look at, street improvements or whatever, again, nothing that we have here is set in stone. So we can obviously have further discussions and make decisions in that regard.
Thank you. Councilman Roth, good to hear from you.
Yeah, I've been quiet tonight, haven't I? Not by design.
There's still time.
I'm still in shock of where I'm sitting today. I used to be over there next to you. You could see me.
It's a cozy corner.
I was automatic. Councilman Roth, yes. Move it, yes. Okay. Anyway, the manpower that the city has when it comes to beginning to take, I would assume these are going to be application processes. Somebody's going to have to approve each of these programs, whether it be the rental assistance, small business grants, mortgage and rental. Who's going to handle the onslaught of applications, and how efficiently will you be able to manage the applications when people from the public come in and start to apply for some of this aid?
It's a great question. Administrative costs are eligible under ARPA, and as you know, we've had a number of programs already in place that we've been able, with current city staff, to administer. And obviously, if it became overwhelming, as I mentioned, administrative costs are covered. We may have to do something to address additional staffing needs. We can't hire people with this money, but if we needed some sort of administrative support through some kind of consulting, it's probably something we could do. But we're hoping that with the programs that the council approves, we'd be able to continue what we're doing now, because many of them are a continuation of the things that already exist, such as rental assistance, utilities assistance. Some of the newer things, like first-time home buyers, we may have to address exactly what you're asking us about.
Right, because, I mean, there's a lot of money to divvy up $1.9 million, as it's written here. It could be a lot of cases, you know, a lot of people coming in and applying for that. And I just wanted to make sure that once we authorize and approve, that there is a plan in place, and that it gets executed where the monies get put out into the public's hand, as we did tonight with the police and others, as soon as possible, because the sooner we can get the relief to them, I think the better we're going to be when it comes to the public's need, when it comes to these programs here. This is found money to us, which is good. And we have to make the best decisions we can with this money. And I'm just thinking back to a meeting we had last month, and when you talk about public health and identifying the true need that we've been all fighting for the last 5 or 6 years or more, is soccer fields, additional soccer fields, not just one soccer field. And if there's one organization, or if there's two organizations, if there's 3 organizations that can support youth soccer in our community, I think we need to start looking at how we can help facilitate home fields for those individual groups. You know, I think somebody sent us an email that talked about AYSO had 520 kids, and another organization had another 280, and another one had like 140 kids, whatever the numbers were. Obviously, with this additional money, we can solve a huge problem when it comes to public health, when it comes to activities for our children after school. And the soccer fields would be a tremendous relief. So I know we've seen the conceptual drawings for the sports complex, but I don't think that cures the problem. It may put a Band-Aid on it, but I still think we need to look at other locations in the city. We've got Roscoe Warren Park. I don't know what condition that those soccer fields are in, but obviously, if there's monies there, we could use those to light that facility as well. I know it's a challenge because it sits under, or sits above which used to be a landfill, but the more opportunities we can give to our youth to build their character with youth sports, I think we should use this money in a way that it enhances those programs too. So I don't know if we've done an internal audit of the number of fields we have that can be used for more than one league in our city. Obviously, there are people who want to bring more soccer to our city as well. And just the thought to continue working towards curing the goals of the soccer organizations, because it's been ongoing for many, many years here. And we put a couple fields in play a couple years ago, but I just think we have the land, we have the resources, we have the extra the funds now, that if we make those investments today, it's going to pay us dividends way into the future with our youth. So that's all I have for now, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Didn't we just commission a Parks Master Plan to kind of get a handle on
Yes, and
an
thank
update
you.
of that need?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm glad you brought that up because we will have a Parks Master Plan which will include input from the community to get a better understanding of what's needed out there. Obviously, we all know, based on our discussions over the recent months, how much we need more soccer fields. But with the Parks Master Plan, we'll look at the entire city, what's needed, what's wanted by the community. Somebody suggested a handball court, which I would never have thought of. But they'll have public meetings, they'll have surveys, and they'll just do an assessment of our parks as they exist now and what improvements are needed there and how we may address the very question that you're bringing up about soccer.
And forgive me, the handball is one of those things that you can put in for different purposes too. We do have a handball court in the city over by the VFW, and if you ever go by there in the afternoon, you'll see a dozen cars or so, and they're playing handball or racquetball or whatever in that location. And you know, that's a great addition. It's very inexpensive to do at the new park design. I think we had talked about that during the preliminary discussions of that too. Anything that we can do that aids to folks getting out of their homes and exercising, whether it be watching people play or playing themselves, I think is a huge benefit to public health. So, and obviously as we evolve into more discussions and more plans on the baseball stadium and what we're going to do out there, it'll evolve into what I think most of us will agree to put out there, which is going to be the maximum use for the maximum amount of people in the city, not just for exercise, but for leisure time, for sitting under a tree reading a book, you know, for all these activities that people look for that are quality of life activities that are outside of the four walls that they live within every day. So, you know, I'm very passionate about that sports complex and having it redesigned so that it becomes an environment by itself, and it really caters to the quality of life for people who live not only on the east side but the west side too. They'll be able to visit over there and take care and participate in activities over there as well. So, thank you for the time, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you. And to piggyback on that, we need not just to know how to upgrade our parks and to add to it, but how to maintain it as well. We need to know what those numbers look like so we can adequately budget over the next, forevermore. For example, I just recently found out that we don't have a schedule for pest control. And Councilman Roth can attest to the fact that when we were out there doing the 5K, the fire ants all over Roscoe Warren were unbearable. They're on all of our parks. This is something that we should probably be doing quarterly, monthly. I don't know, let the expert tell me, but it should be part of our ongoing regular maintenance schedule. And why we've never had one is I guess.
Actually, that's a great point, Councilwoman, and that will also be a part of what is assessed in the master plan. So we are really looking forward to it.
Perfect, thank you. And then back on my topic of infrastructure, maybe not just roadways, but what about sidewalks? We're missing areas of sidewalks on my side of town, in my district, the Waterstone Malibu Bay area, on Campbell Drive. I mean, that's the main roadway. When you're crossing from like the hospital, going towards the overpass and going towards the Kohl's Shopping Center, there's like a whole gap of sidewalk missing. So maybe an assessment, and if it's not from these funds, then maybe some other.
Councilwoman, that's something we can look at right away if you just let us know exactly where it is.
I don't know why they're missing in the first place. It's not like they were there and then they got lost. So I'm not sure what other master plan we have to look at, but maybe a sidewalk master plan. I know that we have residents that come to this meeting that rely heavily on our sidewalks and the condition of it to get around town. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems like this board has a lot of requests and ask. I'd like to be as specific as possible with mine since we're all throwing it out there. Coming from the chamber, there's a perception that it's hard to do business with the city of Homestead. So piggybacking off what Councilwoman Avila was saying about development services, if we can, two things with development services that I hear: it takes too long and it costs too much. So if we're going to specifically address development services, is how are we going to make it more efficient? I had a meeting with staff not too long ago regarding the process, and we started talking in regards to how we can approach rewriting the code. And given that we're one of the most booming cities at the moment, there's lots of demand, there's lots of applications, so the staff is spread pretty thin. So there's no time to rewrite the code from staff. So we can either hire a consultant to rewrite the code, or we could potentially ask to go to universities and ask their urban planning departments, or university students that are getting a PhD or a master's degree, and say, hey, can we present you a problem, and can you guys get back to us with some recommendations on how we can improve this process? And I think creating maybe a task force to do that specifically, to work with universities, I think may be a good approach. And I think it might be a faster approach than workshop after workshop after workshop, really not getting anything concrete done. I want to try to give very specific direction so that we can calculate the amount of time that it's going to take to get done. We give it to our attorneys, and that process gets implemented. And if we have funds now to buy technology that's going to help that process, let's go ahead and get that done right away. Because I know there are other cities that are way more advanced and move their applications through an electronic system very efficiently. I know that stuff's out there, but we just have to, find it and implement it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mayor?
Do you need
Mayor?
anything further from us tonight on this item?
Mayor, there is one thing. If you could give us direction with respect to whether we should go out to bid for Phase 1 design and permitting. And as I mentioned, if you give us that direction, it's not approval of use of those dollars, but we would come back to you with a proposal suggesting that it's funded through the ARPA money.
So you're looking for direction to go out to bid for design and permitting?
Yes.
Okay. We get right back with you. Councilman Roth chimed in.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on the Vice Mayor's comments with development services, I think the rewriting of the code is not going to be something that we can handle with farming out, because one, the code is 100 years old. It's antiquated in a lot of ways, and it would be very challenging for someone that lives outside of our city to craft a code for our city. That would be a workshop that we would participate together through the advice of development services that's not here tonight, as to, and we've had some of these conversations already, and some things are in the works to come back to us either in the form of workshops or other things, but to listen to what they're experiencing. We can listen to the public come to us and say, this may be not right, or that may be not right, this may take too long, this may cost too much. But there's always two sides to the story as well. So I'm all for doing the things that we need to do to become more efficient as a city. And as Councilwoman Avila pointed out, originally in one of the plans, we had set aside money to bring development services into the 21st century when it came to technology. And I don't see that in this at this point. Is there a reason that it was pulled out of this program?
It's not specifically pulled out. I don't know exactly if it's eligible. I think it probably could be, but one of the things we're thinking, as I briefly mentioned before, is that there may be a system that is much less costly, and we can get back to you with that and exactly how it would work.
And that's fine. I don't want to eliminate that from these funds if it's available. I mean, when you think about the city, and it's over 100 years old, but we still live in the 20th century, we should be far ahead of other municipalities because of our age. But Hurricane Andrew set this city back many, many, many years. We know that. So, but I think if we have an opportunity, just like with the public health and the extra soccer fields and setting up, our kids for the future, we have to do the same for development services if the opportunity brings itself through these funds, because we won't get these funds ever again in the hopes of us spending $1 million or $1.5 million to update development services and to bring them into the new century will not come along very often. So I don't know how many permit fees and how many impact fees it would take in developments to earn that kind of money to bring that system into reality for development services. But I think that, along with streamlining some of the processes, will really give people who are looking at the city to do business that, hey, I can just go online, I can email, I can upload, I can do these things without having to go down to the city office, and then I can follow up through email, and when my inspections, just make it more efficient for everybody involved. I think we need to keep that on the table at this point. So, but I'm all for the code thing too, Vice Mayor. It's just, it sounds simple, change some things in the code, but in reality, we have to give them the direction. We got to tell them, look, we don't want them to have to put 15 trees on an acre. We want them to put 8 trees on an acre. Right there cuts the cost in half by doing something like that. We can't go, below certain standards that the county has in effect, but we can do better, but we can't go less than. So we have to be careful with those things too. So there's a big process. We've started it last year, and we're going to continue to evaluate those things. And it's got to be us. We have to be proactive. We have to insist with staff and with the attorneys and with development services. Let's continue to have those meetings. And stuff is in the works. It'll come forward soon. But it's up to us to continue to push forward. Councilman Shelley said the same thing. We had these meetings in the past, but nothing ever came from it. We have a golden opportunity. We all have at least 2 years sitting here now to get some stuff done before we have to go through that process again. So I think that that's what we need to work for. That should be our goal for, at least the next 6 months, to at least effect development services. So that's all I have. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. I think there's a lot of ways to come at what ails us in development services, and it's a multi-legged stool. It's staff, it's the code, it's the process, it's a lot of things, and we'll get there. And I think under the broad category of public health and economic impacts, there's room to put that in. Certainly, as efficiently and as quickly as we can. Vice Mayor?
I'm willing to put in the overtime to work together with you guys on that. And on another topic for Ms. Quinones, I read in this packet that it's extremely expensive to place overhead electrical lines underground. do we have any, or can we at least start the process with the funds that have been included here, or is that not nowhere? Because that would be included in infrastructure, I'm assuming.
So under the ARPA funds, the electrical infrastructure is not eligible. We have put in several FEMA grants that would be eligible for hardening or undergrounding.
Something about, say that again?
So under the ARPA funds, this umbrella, the electrical infrastructure is not considered eligible. But we have looked at other funding sources, such as FEMA grants, DEO grants, to do just that.
Thank you.
Not to mention the recently enacted federal infrastructure package. We're already digging and finding ways to address that, and many of our infrastructure and transportation needs in that new federal legislation that we're just beginning to scratch the surface, where we're going to feed at that trough as best and as deeply as we can to do that. There's no question. All right, so
is it $1 million per mile to put something underground? So that's not like solar panels. It doesn't get more efficient as years go on. Like the cost goes down. Okay. Got it.
is that the price tag, $1 million a mile? Okay. Councilwoman.
And while you're looking into FEMA and all that, see if they can fund any alarm systems for these cables so that when they get stolen, we can be alarmed by it. And try to catch these bad guys.
The copper alarm.
Something. Yeah. It's just an idea. Thank you.
So, I think we need a motion to approve and direct the staff to allocate up to $1.1 million, or no, to go out to bid to receive proposals for design and permitting for phase one.
Yes.
So moved.
And then we would come back and suggest use of the ARPA money.
Is that a second?
Mayor, I'll second with a question. As long as I can get a space heater for under this desk, my feet are absolutely ready to fall off. That's all. Thank you.
I can probably take care of that.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilwoman. I'll second it. Oh, all right. Say okay. You say. I thought you were just begging for a heater. Okay. Do we have any public discussion on this issue before we go forward on the use of the rescue funds? Nothing to add on this specific item? Anton?
Is the meeting still up?
Yes. Right. Okay. Thank you. And we did have some cybersecurity items in this proposal as well. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to authorize the bidding, design, and permitting for Phase 1 of Homestead Sports Complex. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. It's a big first step. And finally, tab 15, car number 3398, amend the city code, competitive bids of Chapter 2, administration. Our manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Over the past 6 months, the city has seen a marked increase in the cost of goods and services it procures for day-to-day operations. This trend is confirmed by both the producer and consumer price indexes attached as Exhibits 1 and 2. As a result of these increases, the city is beginning to experience delays in procuring goods and services due to the existing purchasing limits, which have not changed since 2005. You may remember at the last council meeting when we brought the switchgear pad mount to you, and it cost $25,269. It was just an inventory item, but we had to bring it to you because it was over $25,000. These delays are negatively impacting city operations by adding an additional 30 to 60 days to the current procurement process. In order to alleviate the problem, staff recommends that the council consider the attached proposed ordinance increasing the existing purchasing limitations from $25,000, $35,000 to $50,000, $65,000, and move the item forward to the next council meeting on November 17th, 2021. And notably, this request to increase the threshold would not include the manager's authority for consulting or professional services, which would remain at $25,000.
Thank you. Council? Vice Mayor?
I think with the increase of prices in the supply chain disruption that's happening, I'm comfortable with giving staff and the manager more liberty to make these decisions to move things through the system more efficiently.
And I'd just like to add that when I had my council briefing with staff, we realized that the threshold or the limits had not been increased since I sat as a council member, which was over 13 years ago. So, you know, it's due. It's something that's stagnated and just something that should have been dealt with. So thank you. All right. So moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. Anything further from council?
Yes, Mayor, I have an item.
Yes.
I have a request, hoping that I can get some help on what the best way to go about it is. Similar to tab 5, I have a request to approve allowing an organization use the courtyard here at City Hall for a toy distribution event. It would be for December 18th from 3 to 6 p.m. I know that we had considered looking into a policy for allowing the rental use of the courtyard. I'm not sure, I don't recall what came of it or what policy we have now, but it is free, open to the public. They'll be distributing the toys for as many children as they can until the items run out. But is this something that we can add to our consent agenda for council approval?
I think what we should do, if you have a request from them, ask them to put it in writing and bring it under your business next week. But we'd have to do it quickly because we need to complete the agenda.
They sent it and I already forwarded it to you today.
Okay,
tonight,
great.
So you have it.
We'll put it under your business.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Or-
Thank you. Anything further, Madam Manager? Or, sorry, Vice Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, what are the vacancies that we currently have on some of our committees or boards?
Have the clerk forward, prior to your installation, the clerk did forward a sheet itemizing those vacancies for the various boards. I will be bringing forward at the council meeting next week nominees to fill Planning and Zoning and the Homestead Housing Authority, but there are numerous other boards and committees with vacancies.
And what is the procedure if one of us want to create a new committee or a new board? Is there a, like if I wanted to, I don't know, just get things done committee, what is the process?
That's, it already exists. You're sitting on it. It's a committee of 7. Get stuff done.
But to have a closer relationship with the residents. So is there a procedure that we would need to follow? Do we bring it to you and you think about it for a while?
Mr. Burrell?
Committees are generally created in one of two ways. Either a standing committee is generally codified, and we have a list of them that they meet, quorum issues aside, they would meet regularly, and they're assigned specific duties. On occasion, through the adoption of a resolution, the council has adopted ad hoc committees to look at singular issues, most recently the charter review. We did an ad hoc committee for charter review, and they were given defined parameters, things to look at. So I guess it would depend on the context of what you were doing and the duties that you would want to assign them.
Okay, that gives me a clear direction. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anything further? Nothing? Nothing further from the attorneys? Motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.